Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk, the last week, as we come up to the last week of the year 5783. Please God, this Shabbat, 1st of Tishri, we will be celebrating the first year, we will be marking the first day of the coming year, 5784. And I think that it is very useful to make a list, a to-do list, as we get to the climax of this extremely auspicious month and the festival of Rosh Hashana that follows. And that to-do list comprises of three things. The first, number one, crown Hashem King. Number two, let us make man, Na'aseh Adam. Number three, listen to the voice of the shofar. And I think that all of these three things actually fit in with the three main headings of the Musaf section of the Amida, the additional prayer, standing prayer that we say on Rosh Hashana, on the 2 days of Rosh Hashana that are universally celebrated. And these three sections are called Malchiot, which corresponds to sovereignty, which is declaring Hashem King. Then we have Zichronot, which literally means remembrances, and that corresponds with remembering actually that the first day of Rosh Hashana is the anniversary of the creation of man. And so this phrase, Na'aseh Adam, which was actually said in Bereshis at the beginning of the Torah, when Hashem, whether he consults with the angels or whether this is a question or a statement that is given out to other people, that is human beings, making human beings is a collaborative enterprise, that we have HaKadosh Baruch Hu and other people involved as well. And then the mitzvah that is really associated with the day in the most graphic way, and that is the mitzvah of blowing the shofar. And in all of these three sections, we have special verses from the Tanakh, from Torah, from 5 books of Moses, from the portion of the prophets and from the writings. And there will be quotes from each of these sections to correspond to the three themes of sovereignty and remembering and the shofar. So the first, starting with the concept of sovereignty, the essence of Rosh Hashanah, the most important concept, I think, that we really need to internalize and marvel at is the fact that Hashem is requesting that we appoint him king. And it reminded me earlier this year that we had the coronation of King Charles II in the United Kingdom. And if you were one of the select few, you received an invitation to the coronation. And perhaps you actually stand and line the streets so that you could see part of the spectacle as part of the multitude of people who were included in this way. Or perhaps people watched it on television, on catch up, it was on Shabbat. However, they participated in this event. But King Charles wasn't really inviting us to make him king. He was inviting certain people to participate in his coronation, but this was really, in a way, he was the king, he was the top figure. There's a certain breathtaking humility in the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, is saying to us, please will you make me king? I cannot be a king without my subjects. And it's almost as if our role as his subjects is the crucial one. And I think that that's a flip of the way we would normally think that a king who considers himself a ruler used to be in ancient times an absolute ruler. And now we have Hashem, who is Melech Malchei Hamlochim, who is King of Kings. And yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, you need to choose to make me king. You need to choose to listen to my commandments. And I think that on the one hand, this is a display of humility, as it were, on the part of Hashem. But really, it is also perhaps a way of putting confidence in human beings, in Adam, in Hashem's handiwork, we could say the pinnacle of creation, that we can be trusted to make the right choice. And then when we do that, when we have that buy-in, then it is a very meaningful decision. It is a meaningful way to live our lives. This fact that we are making Hashem king, this is the best way to bring Hashem into our lives and to appreciate the concepts, the values, the practical applications of everything that is part of the Torah, that is part of our universe. And so in this way, we have to think first and foremost, how do I go beyond just saying the words? Yes, I can say Hashem is my king, but really and truly and deeply, how do I make that an actual coronation? As if I am putting a crown, as it were, on Hashem's head on this occasion. So let's just leave that for one moment to the side. And then we go to this next section, which is Zichronot, which is the section of memory. And there are many things that we remember. And I think that if we go back to this concept of Rosh Hashanah being the beginning of mankind, of the creation of the human being, and we see that we are, because uniquely among all of the rest of the beings and objects that were created in the scheme of creation, man uniquely has this capacity to choose. And as we remember this, as we celebrate this, and again looking at the phrase Na'aseh Odom, let us make man, and there is this idea that there are three partners in the creation of man: Hashem, his mother, and his father. And so we have the human involvement in this project called humanity. And there's also a concept that it takes a village to raise a child, that so many people have the possibility to contribute to a human being developing and becoming an asset to the world, becoming a way in which the miracles of creation can be enhanced because of human interaction, human involvement. And so this is something that we can really, again, think of ourselves as partners with Hashem. Although the Medrash says that this, when Hashem says Na'aseh Odom, even though these words could have been used as an excuse by heretics to say that Hashem is not the only God, when we say Hashem Echad, we mean that, among other things, that Hashem is the one God, but then how could Hashem use the plural? So even though there was this risk of people misinterpreting it in that way, however, Hashem is teaching us this lesson of collaboration, of mutual contribution and involvement, which is such an essential part of everything that we do. And so we are all part of this incredible possibility to join together to make ourselves individually and collectively the best that we can be. And again, lovely words, but how do we actually realize them? How do we make them? How do we bring them into the very core of our being, of our consciousness, and especially on this unique and auspicious occasion of Rosh Hashanah? And I think that we can find the answer in the third section, in the third thing on the to-do list, which is the shofar, hearing the call of the shofar. And the fascinating thing about the shofar is that having lived and learnt about it for as long as I can remember, I would say we even hear the shofar in the womb, when we are in the womb, that the sounds that are heard are also heard by the fetus inside the womb. This has been proven scientifically, and I was amazed to find a new interpretation and understanding of the way that the shofar in a way brings together this idea of Hashem's kingship over all of us and accepting that and inviting Hashem to be our king, and also our unique contributions as human beings in the call of the shofar. There famously Rav Saadia Gaon, who lived at the beginning, was born in the 1842 and died 60 years later, and he gave 10 reasons why we blow the shofar, covering a very wide range. And these are, born 1892, died 1942. He was born in Egypt and he lived in the Middle East. And the 10 reasons that he gives include crowning a king at a coronation. Again, we witnessed it in real time earlier this year, and we crown the king to the sound of the trumpets. It's also the sound of an alarm clock. This is a wake-up call. When we hear the sound of the shofar, we couldn't sleepwalk our way through life, but actually Rosh Hashana is the time that we need to wake up. And Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, in a fascinating talk on this subject, told over a very funny joke, I thought it was very funny, that very poor, in a poor village in the shtetl in Eastern Europe, a friend went to visit a friend from a neighboring village, and they were talking till late at night, and the visitor said, "Oh my goodness, what time is it? I think I need to get going." So his host said, "Well, I don't have a watch. I'm too poor to have a watch." He says, "Do you have a clock somewhere?" "No, I'm too poor to have a clock." So the visitor asked, "Well, how do you tell the time?" So the host grabs the shofar and starts blowing the shofar, and suddenly there's a thumping from the neighboring house saying, "What do you think you're doing? It's 3 o'clock in the morning." So the host says to the visitor, "That's how we tell the time." And we can laugh at the ridiculousness of it, but actually the shofar is the way that we tell the time for us to really think deeply about these things: crowning Hashem king, making man, Na'aseh Adam. We do that. The call of the shofar wakes us up and tells us the time. There's also the reference to the fact that the shofar was blown at the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, and the sound, the voice of the prophets. The shofar has been associated with the tears that we cry over the loss of the Beis Hamikdash, and famously associated with the ram's horn that was used for the Akedah, for the 10th test of Abraham, where Hashem says, "Take your son and bring him up as an olah." And then we have the fact that the shofar inspires awe and introspection, and is also the sound that we associate with the coming of Moshiach, with the Messiah and our redemption. So all of these things are very classic reasons given for the blowing of the shofar. Beyond, because in the Torah we're given the command to blow the shofar and when to blow the shofar, but the details are fine-tuned. And the recent idea shared in a talk by Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson is that with the shofar we are going back to original creation, in as much as when Hashem creates the world uniquely, he creates yesh mi'ayin, that he creates something from ayin, which we will say in English is nothing, but actually it's not nothing, it's no thing. And it's not just a nitpicking difference, because when we say Hashem is no thing, we are acknowledging that Hashem is infinite and indefinable. He not like a thing that has a shape, that has limits, but Hashem, from his complete ability to not be bound or with any boundaries whatsoever, is able to just construct matter from no matter. So we need to somehow lose a little bit of our own identity and be able to acknowledge and merge in certain ways with that complete oneness of Hashem. And the explanation given is, if we imagine ourselves as a plastic bottle and a vast ocean, and Hashem is the vast ocean and we are the plastic bottles. And if we take the lid off the plastic bottle and we submerge that plastic bottle inside the ocean, the water that's maybe already in the bottle and the water of the ocean will mingle. And in that way, we are accepting, we are embracing that essence, part of the essence of Hashem, and combining my individual identity with that identity of my creator. And in this way, appreciating the vastness of the ocean, we are able to elevate ourselves, to really internalize this concept that Hashem is my Melech Malchei Hamlochim, by seeing it in this way. And the concept that we learn this from the shofar, that has to be a ram's horn. And in the Mishnah, in the tractate of Rosh Hashana, in the 3rd chapter, we are told exactly where we have to take the shofar from for purposes of Rosh Hashana, and the Mishnah specifies that it needs to be a ram's horn. And if we look at, for a moment, look at animals, look at specifically domesticated animals and specifically the sheep, there is this ability to actually follow a shepherd without questioning, without saying, I would like to be born as a lion. I don't want to be a sheep anymore. I want to be a lion. We don't tend to notice that behavior coming from sheep. But there is a certain acceptance and ability to go with that instinct of what they were made to do. And they are able to actually fully follow in that mission, in that path. Now, Hashem did not create us as sheep or any other creatures. He has created us as human beings, and so we are going to come with the abilities and with the challenges and with the struggles of human beings. But we are able, when we are hearing the sound of the shofar, which is a wordless, noteless in a way call, it's not like a musical instrument that you are able to fine-tune notes on, but we are able to really understand that we can take our essence as human beings and borrow, as it were. We can look at the creatures around us. We can look specifically at the sheep, and we can understand that our mission is to follow the directive of Hashem. Our mission is to crown Hashem. Our mission is to use our partnership with other people and really awaken these thoughts as we listen to the shofar. And it's also apparent in the act of blowing the shofar, because we exhale into the shofar in order to create that sound. And if we look back into Bereshis, chapter 2, verse 8, we read, Vayipach ba'apov nishmas chayim, and he blew into his nostrils a living soul, Vayihi ha'adam lenefesh chaya, and the man became a living being. The nefesh, the soul of the man, became a living being. And so, as we are blowing into the shofar, we can remember Hashem blowing nefesh chaya, blowing life into the first human being. And this is a way of filling ourselves with this breath of Hashem as we fill the shofar with our breath. And also the physical reality that in order to hear the sound of the shofar, there can't be any blockages, there can't be any foreign objects inside that shofar, because the sound will not be heard, the sound will be clogged up, it has to be clean inside. So it is as if we need to clean ourselves inside, clean ourselves of our subjective blockages, and especially at this point of Rosh Hashana, especially at this moment of listening to the shofar, to really make ourselves receptacles to receive fully Hashem's presence, like the water bottle in the ocean, submerged in the ocean, who for this purpose actually needs to leave the cap off. And although the reality is that sometimes you're going on a hike, you will need to have a cap on your water bottle. You'll need to preserve your individuality, your own essence, and you'll need to limit everything in this way. But for the purposes of Rosh Hashanah, for the purposes of the way we think and feel, and the prayers and the quality of our prayers, if we are able to really focus on making Hashem's presence as King, Melech Malchei Hamlochim, as Supreme King of all kings, making that concept a reality, making the concept of Naaseh Odom a reality, and really embracing the call of the shofar, listening to it carefully, and having all of these thoughts and wisdoms percolating throughout our minds and all our senses, our auditory senses, our mindset, as we listen to and carry that symbolism throughout the whole concept of Rosh Hashanah. And even this year, as we have the first day of Shabbos, and since the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, we do not blow shofar on Shabbos. But still, the lessons and the messages, they are something that resonate even in the silence of the shofar this first day of Rosh Hashanah, and we are still able to learn and grow from these many beautiful messages. Thank you very much for listening. Wishing everybody a kasiva v'chasima tova, a shana tova umatuka, a healthy and blessed and happy year, full of simchas and all manner of blessings. Thank you very much for listening.